Introduction to views. You're at MidCamp, so congratulations. The slides, if you prefer to follow along at your own pace, are posted there. Also, feel free to give me a rating or leave some comments. I'm much more interested in the comments than in the rating. I'm really trying to get better at this. Intro talks are really hard to give. So anything that you want to comment would be helpful there. I am Les Lim. On Twitter, I am Les Mana. On IRC, Les Lim. I've been on Drupal since 2006. I'll have my 10-year Drupalversary this year. From Minneapolis, I work at a small company called 10-7, where I'm a back-end developer. Twin Cities, by the way, Minneapolis is a great Drupal locale. We have one of the best, in my opinion, the best Drupal camps in the nation, Twin Cities Drupal camps. It's great for content. It's 4 days, but we're also known for throwing some of the best parties you'll ever see. Minneapolis in the summertime is beautiful. You should all come out. I would love to see you all there. So, first off, things that I hope you're going to be able to come out of this particular session with is I hope that you'll be able to understand what views are, what views are in Drupal, and when you as a site builder would want to leverage them. Building on that, I'd like to make sure that you all have an idea of some of the basic and necessary configuration options in views, and have a sense of how changing those configurations will change the behavior of the view that you're editing. And also, I would hope that you come away with some familiarity with the views interface, because it is a beast. So, what is views? What are views? It's a bit of a grammatical puzzle. So when people talk about views, they could be talking about views in one of three ways, using it in one of three ways. They could be using it as shorthand for the views module. They could be using it to refer to the tool overall that we use in Drupal to configure dynamic lists. Or they could be referring to the lists themselves. Views are list. Views is a tool. Views is the views module. So when you hear people talking about views as the views module, it's usually involved in go to the extend page and install views. Make sure views is installed, or make sure views is enabled. So if we look at the extend page, I've filtered the extend page to look only for views, and we see that we have enabled both the views and the views UI module, which provides the user interface that we'll be looking at today. The second way that people will use the word views is to talk about the tool called views, which here you can see is located under the structure tab when you have your administrative bar. It's at the bottom. There's views. This is, when you hear people use views as a singular, as a collective noun, this is almost always the way they mean it. So when it sounds weird, they're usually talking about the tool in Drupal. But views are also lists. An individual view is a list. Views, taken collectively, they are lists. And they're in Drupal all over the place. The default front page in Drupal is a view. So this is a little default site that I cooked up that we'll explore more a little later on. This is the administrative list of files in Drupal as well. The administrative list of files, of content of users, all of those are views. The Who's Online block, which comes out of Drupal core, that's also a view. It's a view of users. So let's take a little closer look at what perhaps is entailed by each of these views. The front page view is primarily, it's based on content, which means that the items being listed there are pieces of content as opposed to users or taxonomy terms or comments. It's formatted as a list being shown as teasers. And by teasers, I'm referring to the teaser display mode that comes with content items. It's filtered so that we're only seeing published content as well as content that's been promoted to the front page. It's been sorted so that if any pieces of content are marked as being sticky, they'll stay at the top of the list. But otherwise, more recently created content will go to the top of the page. And finally, it's being displayed by Drupal as a page. Which means that the view has a URL path, and when we go to that URL path, the view comprises the main content of the page at that path. That's one notable example of a view that you'll see very often. second example that we have, the files administrative view. This is based on files as opposed to content, which is what we had last time. The individual items being shown in this view, and that's really hard to see, but they're files. Each record is a file in Drupal. The way it's being formatted is as a table that is showing columns of fields. This view is exposing filters, so the fields at the very top of the view, that's a form where users are able to input their own filter values to get the values that they want out of the view. It's being sorted. Right now, it's hard to see. It's initially being sorted by the last date that the file was changed. The header indicates that the change date is the active sort, and there's an arrow that indicates that it's being sorted descending, which means that more recent content is at the top of the list, more recently changed files. Also, this view is being displayed as a Drupal as a page as well. It has a URL path, and at that URL path, the view is the main content of the page. The third example of a view that we had, the Who is Online view. This is based on users. The thing that's being shown in the view is primarily users, as opposed to content or files like in the previous examples. It's formatted as a list, being shown as rows of selected fields, and that might not make sense yet. We'll go over that in a sec. It's being filtered to show only users who are active and users who have accessed the site in the last 15 minutes. And it's sorted to put the more recently online users at the top. Unlike the last two examples, this view is being displayed by Drupal as a block. It doesn't have a URL path. It's in the block interface as something that can be placed into the theme layout and displayed in a region of the page. You'll notice that we have 5 words that keep on popping up here. These 5 keywords are the key components of views that I want to clue on today. The first is the base, which is the kind of item that we want to list in the view. The second is the format, which controls how we arrange and how we display each item. Filter criteria are the rules that we set to determine what gets listed. Sort criteria are rules that govern which items go first, the order of the items that are displayed. And the fifth concept is called displays in views, which largely sort of controls how in Drupal we want to use the view, where it shows up. Does it show up as a page that has a URL path? Does it show up in the block interface as something that can be put into a region? This is mostly what displays is concerned about. So let's look at the configuration of one of the views and see if we can poke into these concepts a little more. So first we'll go to the structure page. We'll find where the views tool lives, which is at the bottom of that list. Generally, on the slides, if I have an orange arrow, that means that I'm clicking on something. So we'll click on the views link, which brings us to the list of views that are available on the site. The blue button is an action button for adding a new view, which we'll do at the very end of the talk. We'll look at a currently existing view right now. The box underneath it is a live sort of filter. It's a search, and I'm searching for views that have who in the name so that I can find the Who is Online block. The list of views that you see here right now, they'll show you the name of the view, the description that's been given to it. There's a tag, which is an arbitrary category that you can put on views to help you sort of group them in the interface. They'll also show up if you search for them using that search tool at the top. And then there is this edit operation thing. This widget, if you haven't seen it before, this is called a drop button. It's got a default action, which here is edit, but if you clicked on that drop-down arrow on the right side of it, you would get alternate options that would be available to you. So not just edit, but we can duplicate this view, so we can sort of clone it and play with the clone of that view. We can disable it so that it's not available in Drupal anymore, temporarily, or we can delete it, which will remove it permanently from Drupal. For now, we're going to click on Edit and take a look at what the configuration screen for this Who's Online block is. So here it is. This is a giant mess, and it's not particularly readable, and partly that's the projector and partly that's my slides. The top part here is the configuration of the view, but if we scoot down lower, on the page, below the configuration, there is also a live preview area, which is a pretty neat thing that Views gives to you. So as you are changing configurations in the top, the preview in the bottom will give you a general sense of how the view is changing its behavior as you go. And you can preview it without having to actually save it first to check on what's going on. Let's skip back to the top of the page. So I want to go sort of elementally down the list of the page to identify what it is that we're actually seeing in this view. But first, I want to point out this tour link at the very top of the page. The tour is sort of a specialized help widget. It's got general info about the UI in Views. When you click it, it'll sort of zoom around the page, point at stuff, and tell you what those are. It's general, it doesn't get too much into details, but it can be helpful if you just sort of need a refresher on what each of these elements are. And it's easy to forget that it's up there, so I just wanted to point that out. So the title of the page is the view that you're looking at, the Who's Online block. In parentheses it says user, and that indicates what the base of the view is. And if you'll recall, the base of the view is the type of item that we are listing for this view. The base of the view is one of the only things in Drupal that you can't change after the fact. It's set when you create the view, and after that, if you discover that you made the wrong choice, you have to start over with a different view. Every other setting can be configured after the fact in this interface, but that's the only one which is immutable. We also have displays. This is a list of view displays, and this is the source of much confusion when you're starting out. So let's talk about displays a little more closely. Displays represent different forms that a view may take. So if you were to imagine that I was a view, I have one display. It's me. I don't change from day to day. I don't have different forms. I am a human that plugs into places where a human plugs in. But Optimus Prime has two displays. He has a robot display, but he has a truck display as well. They're used in different contexts. They're displayed differently. They're still essentially Optimus Prime. You can have any number of displays for a particular view. For the Who's Online view, we only have one right now. It's labeled Who's Online, but you see that Add button that's next to it. If we were to click on the Add button, we would get a listing of the different types of displays that are available to be added. If we assume that we were to click on the Page display to add a page display, then the list of displays would increase, and we'd see Who's Online and Page as well. Page is highlighted in black to indicate that it is the active display that's being edited, as the asterisk also said to show you that there are unsaved changes on the view. The type of display determines how Drupal is going to use the display. So we talked about that some displays mean that Drupal uses it as a page, some displays mean that it uses it as a block. I've listed all of the different page display types made available in Drupal core here, or display types, not page display types. I only want to talk about block and page right now. It's just here for completeness, in case you're looking at these slides later on. But we are mostly going to deal with displays that are blocks and displays that are pages. One notable example of a display, or a view that has multiple displays, is the front page. So on the left we have the page display, which is just what you see on the default Drupal homepage, that sort of river of news items or articles. But there's also on the front page view a feed display, which is the XML feed that you can parse into Feedly, or at one point Google Reader, rest in peace. You'll notice that there is a feed icon in the bottom left corner of the page display. That's being put there by the feed display. The feed display is letting the page display know, hey, I'm here, and you should let people know on the page display that there's also a feed display. It's something that the feed display hooks into the page display for, to provide that icon there. But most views should only really need one display. When you start getting down the road of having multiple displays in a view, you can get yourself confused very easily. I don't even want to go down that road. It's too traumatic. It's hard to talk about, but you can accidentally change settings in displays that you didn't mean to change if you are combining displays. I would say if you think that you might need two displays, you might actually have a better route going with two different views instead, so two views each with one display. that can often save you a lot of hassle. It may clutter the list of views in the views interface, but that's what searching and tagging is for. So back to the configuration. So we found where the list of displays are. I didn't add a page display. I've left it with the default Who's Online block display. Additionally, up here we've got views operations. This is another drop button. If you were to open the drop button, you would see options like editing the name and the description of the view. You could duplicate the view so that if you didn't want to create a second page display or a second block display for this view, you could duplicate the view entirely and call it something else and edit that instead. You can also disable or delete the view from here as well. Okay. This whole section is the configuration for the Who's Online display. If we had multiple displays, then whichever display was active, you'd be seeing the display configuration for that active display. But this is the nuts and bolts of the configuration for the Who's Online view. We'll go into this a little more elementally in a second. The display configuration has its own operations up in the top right. Things that are in here would be things like duplicating individual displays, so copying a display to create a second display in this view, and also the ability to reorder displays. There's probably not very often that you'll have to look at what's in the display options, but it's there for completeness. Saving, canceling, these are nothing is actually saved in your view. You can make several different configuration changes, and those will stay in the view interface. Nothing will actually apply until you save it. So, cluing in on the display configurations, editing individual parts of the display. Each of these links that's in the display, the things that are blue, when you click on them, you will get a configuration modal that has editing options for that thing. So up in the top right, we've got this title link that says Who's Online. That's indicating to you the current value of that configuration. And when I click on it, I get a modal that shows up where I can affect what the value of that particular configuration is. There's this thing up here. This is part of the confusing reasons why I can't stand having more than one display often in a view. This would allow you to make this change to all displays or just to this display. I'm going to be leaving this at all displays for the purpose of this demonstration and not talking about it ever again. I've just changed the title. I don't know if you caught that. I changed it from Who's Online to Recent Visitors. And now we'll click the Apply button. And a couple things have happened. That arrow's not supposed to be there. The message at the top will tell you that you have unsaved changes in the view. You'll notice that in the title, in the top left of the display, it says Recent Visitors now instead of Who's Online. And if I scroll down to the preview, it'll tell me that the title has changed to Recent Visitors. It also bears mentioning this preview is not a literal preview of what it looks like on the site. It's more of an informational preview. So that you have a little more context for the thing that changed in your view. But we can save it and then go back and see the thing on the front page of the website and verify that it's changed to Recent Visitors now instead of Who's Online. Editing display configurations follows that same pattern for everything that is a link on that configuration page. So let's talk a little more about some of those things that are on the left-hand side of the interface. Let me first go back here. I only actually want to talk about the things that are in this very left-hand column. These are the things that are the most relevant to what the view is doing. The middle column has some interesting stuff that hopefully you'll be able to go over on your own. And then there's the advanced stuff, which we'll just gloss over a little bit at the end of the talk. So for the most part, when you see a screenshot of a snippet of this page, it's just going to be the stuff that's in this left column. So the formatting, it's in the interface right below title. And if you remember from earlier, the 5 components, the formatting controls how a row in the view is arranged, how each one is arranged relative to another. And it also controls how we display each item within the row. There are two components listed here. The first one is called format, and it controls how you arrange the rows in the view. It's also sometimes called the style format because naming things is hard. There's also the show component, which is the method that you use to determine what gets shown for the item in the row. It's also called the row format. Those are sort of legacy names for those things that go back to Drupal 5, and they've still sort of hung around, and so you'll get them heard interchangeably. So it's one of those things that'll be confusing for a little while. You'll also notice that in the interface, there are actually 4 links. For each component, the link on the left controls which option, which is selected for that particular component. The settings link on the right indicates configuration options that are relevant to the thing that you selected. So the settings option next to HTML list are configurations that are relevant to when you format the view as an HTML list. So let's look at the format options specifically. The format component has 4 different options out of the box. There's grid and table, which are shown in the screenshots. Oh,
It should come back. I forget in a second.
Yeah, just wait, it'll come back.
Yeah.
Thanks. So that's distressing. The grid and the table. So I've got them in the screenshots. I actually skipped ahead a little bit of myself and added a second field because that helps sort of explain what the difference is between these 2 different arrangements. So the grid view at the top, each item is collected in its own area, but each item is arranged in a grid. For the table, each item is arranged in a row, and each field of that row is in a different column. There's also HTML list and unformatted list, and that's what the default Who's Online view looks like. It's just stacking the items one on top of each other. And the only difference between an HTML list and an unformatted list is that an HTML list uses like a UL element or an OL HTML element, whereas an unformatted list uses a div element. There's otherwise very little difference between those 2. These aren't the only options that are available to you. Particularly with some contrib modules, you'll get other formats available to you. Like if you were to install the FlexSlider contrib module, FlexSlider gives you another formatting option for this list, which would allow you to render the view as a slideshow. So, like I said, each of those different formatting options has its own additional settings. So if I had picked grid as my format option and I'd clicked on settings, this is the modal window that comes up for the grid. It's got things that are relevant to just setting the grid options, like the number of columns that I would have in the grid, whether or not the grid should align itself horizontally or vertically, some other things as well. These certain numbers of these fields wouldn't be available to you if you had been configuring an HTML list, for example. And then the show component, which is the other component. This one is what do we display inside each row of the view, independently of how it's arranged. There are generally going to be 2 options for this view. The first is fields, where you pick and choose individual fields to display for the row. This is what's happening right now in the Who's Online view, where the field that's being selected is the username. The other option is listed here as user, but that's related to the base being the user. If we were looking at a view that had a content as a base or file as a base, then you would see not user, but content and file. This row setting is it's for displaying the item as a rendered entity using one of those entities display modes. So displaying content as a teaser or displaying a user as as a compact entity. I can show you an example of what that looks like. Oh, first of all, additional settings. Just like format, show options have their own additional settings. So if I had chosen user as my show option, then the settings for that would be what view mode would you like to select to render this user as. And it also bears mentioning that if I've not selected fields, I won't be able to configure fields down below either, which is why it says the selected style or row format does not use fields. But if I were to save this, then what I get here is my recent visitors, or Who's Online view, and instead of listing the names, the name fields out for all the people who are currently online, I have a grid set at 2 columns, And instead of showing fields, I'm showing user entities rendered using the display mode or the view mode compact. And in Drupal, this comes out of the box in Drupal. The compact view mode just shows picture thumbnails, the user's uploaded images for thumbnails. So fields, which is the next thing in the left-hand column of configuration, it's a continuation of the format, insofar as you could think of all of the fields as being the settings of the show fields configuration. The user interface for this just is complex enough that it merits being pulled out into its own category of things. But fields, this configuration determines which pieces of information you want to show for each row. So for the Who's Online or Recent Visitors block, the only field that's being shown is the username field. But I could, in fact, add any number of fields that I wanted to this interface. We can add new fields using the drop button next to the field. When we click on the Add button, we'll get a modal with options for the different kinds of fields that are available for inclusion in this display. And what's available for inclusion relies on what you've picked for your base. So because the base of this view is user, you will get user properties and user fields in this list as well. There are also a few other things that are related to the user object that are in there. For instance, everything that's listed under the file usage category, that's there because there is a picture file associated with each user, and so it automatically, Views knows automatically to include some fields that are associated with files. There are some global options that are there for various purposes. We're not going to be that interested in those things right now. What I'm mostly going to do is use the search filters at the top of the interface, which are bracketed off in orange, to look for the email field. I'll click on the field that I want to add, and then I'll click on Apply. And I will get the configuration screen now for the field that I am adding. Each field has its own configuration settings. There's create a label, there's exclude from display. Each of them will, for instance, with create a label, I could just put a piece of text behind it, just saying mail, and then colon, and then listing out my mail. Exclude from display is a way to temporarily make it so that this field doesn't actually display, but it's available to the view. The formatter is how we're going to render this field value. I selected plain text here, but in this particular dropdown, you could also have the mail render as a mail to link so that it's clickable and it would open up whatever mail program the user has. And I wanted to send into each one of these first three these collapsed settings as well. So style settings, and we're still in the configuration for the field, but this is the expanded style settings. You would use style settings to customize the HTML that you use to wrap the field. You can select an HTML element to go around the field, or just the label, or just the field value. You can configure classes that would go on those elements. It's pretty flexible in terms of allowing you to put just the right kind of structure that you want around the field. There's rewrite results underneath style settings, and this is an interesting one. This one allows you to change what the field output is, so that whereas traditionally the field output would just be the mail address, I can make it instead so that the field outputs as this person's name's email address is, and then the mail value wrapped in a strong tag. And those things in brackets, the name and mail, those are tokens which are replaced by the values of other fields that are in this view. So if you were to open up the replacement patterns, it would give you a listing of all of the tokens that are available in this view right now. So you can drop in that name token or that mail token, and then when you view the final product, you don't see those tokens, you see the values instead that get replaced in. The third thing that's in the field configuration for all fields is this no results behavior. And this is, if we didn't have a mail value, then what should we do with this field? We can either completely hide it, so don't even show like a label if you have one there. You can configure it to say this person has no email address. If you wanted to put that in the no results text, it allows you to have a sensible default for when the user is expecting a result but doesn't have one. So once you have saved that field configuration, it appends itself to the fields area. It's below it just appends itself to the bottom, but we can rearrange the order that fields are rendered in by using the drop button, and selecting the rearrange option. That'll give you, I don't have a screen for that, but that'll just give you a modal with draggable handles where you can just change the order of which fields go in what order. So now we're apparently moving ahead. This is filter criteria. This is the next item available to you in your view configuration. Filters are what determines what you're going to show in the display. So in this case, because the view is based on users, we know it's showing users, but additionally it's showing that we only want to show users who are active. So the user status is yes. That's confusing, but it's in Drupal talk, the status means that yes, I am active, as opposed to no, I am blocked. It's also filtering according to the time of last access, and that says ampersand GT. That's a bit of a bug in Drupal. That means greater than. So greater than or equal to, and that's 15 minutes ago. So any user whose time of last access is more than 15 minutes ago is considered to be currently on the site, at least according to this view. The interface for adding filters, for rearranging filters, it works the same as the interface for adding and reordering fields, and anything else actually for that matter that you can add to the views interface this way. That interface is reusable. So let's take a look at this particular filter, the last access filter. When you click on that, the configuration that comes up gives you a couple things. Filters are made up of operators and values. The operator is the type of comparison being made. And a lot of times this will be equal to. So your filter would be something like my node type equals blog post, or my user ID equals 1. In this case, we are interested in the greater than or equal to operator, a time that's greater than or equal to some time. And then for this particular filter, we've got a special kind of value which allows us to put a relative time in. So 15 minutes ago is what we're putting in there. This is all actually configured by default in core. I didn't change this. This is what it's already set at. There's also, if you'll notice before on this box, at the top there's this checkbox that says expose this filter to visitors to allow them to change it. When that's checked, it gives you additional options as well that pertain to how we're going to label this field. Exposed filters will show up as a form at the top of the view that allow the end user, the person who's viewing the page or viewing the view, to set their own value for this particular filter, so that instead of 15 minutes ago, that person may be able to put in 30 minutes ago or an hour ago. It doesn't actually work very well with block displays for various reasons. It can, but it's complicated for reasons that we're not going to go into. For the most part, you're going to use exposed filters with displays that are pages and that operate as pages. The sort criteria, again, those are the rules for determining what goes first in a listing, or the order. And the priority goes top down in the listing of sort criteria, so the date of last access in this case. And each sort is only pertinent if the previous sort is a tie. So if everybody has different last access dates, it doesn't matter what the second sort criteria is. It's only used in case two people had the exact same time of last access. So if we click on the configuration for a sort criteria, we get modal configuration for that, which has a couple things. Exposed sorts work similarly to exposed filters. if you expose a sort, then in the form that you get at the top of the view, the end user is able to select which value in the sorting column that they would like the view to be ordered by. You can change the sort order, whether or not we should sort ascending or sort descending on this particular value. Because this happens to be a date value, then views also gives you the option of setting a granularity, which means should I treat all values that are within this particular day as being equal? Should I go all the way down to the second to determine whether or not that the timing is considered equal? And that can be pertinent for determining whether or not I want some second sort criteria to come into play. I may, for instance, want all of the events on a particular day to be considered equal for the purpose of sorting, and then sort them alphabetically as a secondary sort option, for example. So those are the 5 different configuration options that are most pertinent to creating a view. I want to try creating a view right now, an entirely new view from scratch, so we're not dealing with the Who's Online block anymore. The scenario that I have in mind for this is we're building a website for a farmer's market. That website has a couple different content types. One of those content types is vendors, people who participate in the farmer's market as business people selling goods. There's a second content type that is recipes, and recipes are submitted by vendors. So they are associated with vendors, but they are different things that are different pieces of content altogether. This scenario was actually cribbed from a project called the Drupal 8 User Guide, which is sort of a beginner's level guide to configuring Drupal from the standpoint of a site builder that's being developed right now. If you go to www.drupal.org/project/user guide, you can see the guide in progress right now. It's a free to use guide. It's online, and I'd say it's about 80% done. It's going to be a great resource. This is that scenario. So hopefully, if you follow that user guide, you will see a lot of things that are familiar from this talk. So, if the scenario is a farmer's market, it's reasonable to say that one of the things that somebody would ask you is, can we have a page that shows all of the vendors on a site? I don't know, can you? Let's return back to the 5 key components of a view to determine how we can answer that question. So, yes, I think we can do that, but it behooves us to be able to make sure that we know what that means. So we want to create a view that is a page of vendors. Let's figure out if we can fill out these questions. So, first of all, the base of a view. What kind of item are we listing? We are listing vendors, which are content types. So we know that the base is going to be content. The format of the view. That's a good question. Nobody actually gave us any instructions about how the view should be formatted. But we can make a best guess that what we probably want is a listing of vendors, just a regular list, not a table or a grid, and that we want to display the teaser display mode of the vendor. So we'll go with that as our formatting options. The filter criteria that we want to use now. We know that we're going to get content, but we want to specifically get only vendor content, and we don't want to show anybody who is not published. So we also want to filter only by published content. And for sort criteria, we're going to go alphabetically according to the vendor title. And for displays, we're going to have a page in the site that shows the vendors. We don't necessarily want a block right now. Given these 5 questions answered, we should be able now to construct the view that we're looking for. So when you go back to the listing of views and you click on that Add New View, the page you get is not the views configuration interface that we've seen before. Before we get there, we have an Add New View setup wizard. It's on this page that you do things like you set what the base of the view is, as well as just a few things that will help you fill in simple configuration to make your life a little bit easier to get started with this. So this, I'm not sure if this is going to work. I'm in presenter mode. This is a video that I recorded of me going through this process. Hopefully this doesn't suck. Cross your fingers. So I'm going to structure, and I will go to the views interface and click on add new view. Whoops, that's why. This is as bad as a live demo. Sorry, people. So, am I paused? No, I'm not. So I'm giving myself a view name. I'm inspecting the list of bases, and I want to select content. That seems right to me. So I'll leave it at content, but I want to specify only vendors. And I'm changing this sort to be on title instead of by date. And then it's asking me if I want to create a page, and I say yes. And it's helpfully determined that maybe I want it to be called vendors and be available at the path vendors. And I'm going to choose now a display format of list and teasers. Those defaults are exactly what we decided to do. And because it's a page, it needs a few other things too, like I want it to be in the menu automatically. This will actually put it in the menu with a link name of vendors.
Could you answer a quick question?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can pause it. Hey, that actually worked.
In view settings, show content of type, how did you get vendors in the dropdown?
Let me see if I can go back in the video.
Or is that a custom, something custom that you, recipes and...
Recipes and vendors were... that was created, I followed the Drupal 8 user guide project, and there are steps in that project to create a content type and a recipe. Those were pre-created. I should have explained that more.
Okay.
Those don't exist out of. So if you're just in the user interface, you'll probably see basic page and article, probably. So let's go through that again. So play. So the type I'm choosing is vendor. Sorting by not newest first. We don't care if it's newer. We just want to see alphabetical because that's the most useful to people viewing the page. We'll create a page. The title is pre-filled. Unformatted list seems right. Also teasers seems right. It'll automatically create a pager, so if I have more than 10 items, then it will put a pager at the bottom of the view. So that's the end of the views wizard. Now we get the configuration screen that we've been looking at so far. So without having to change anything else in the configuration screen, the add new view wizard has pretty much gotten us the output that we want. We have a list of teasers of vendors in the site. There are 3 of them. I don't really have good pictures to show. So they're all me, because you are in a nightmare universe of my own creation. So given that, we're just going to save this view. Oh, first, I think, yeah, the title was being sorted alphabetically descending for some reason. So I just changed it to make it alphabetically ascending. When I'm saving that view, we'll go back to the site. And I have a vendors tab up in my navigation now, which shows me my list of vendors. It's a teaser view, so I can read more and click through to more vendors if I want to, or to more information about that vendor. But this already got us pretty close to where we're going. I didn't do that. What time is it? 43. There is I recorded another video. I didn't think I'd have time to get to it, but let's give it a shot. Here's another video of me creating a recipes view now instead. So the view of recipes is just going to be a little bit more complicated than the view of vendors. I want to create, say, a grid view of all the recipes, and I want to show an image field and a little bit of the summary of the recipe on that page as well. So we'll start again. from structure to views. Say recipes, content, and we'll choose recipe out of there instead. And then we'll want to sort that. By newest first seems fine. New recipe should go to the top. So again, we'll create a page, and the page title and the path default seem okay. But yeah, instead of unformatted list, we want to display these things as a grid instead. So we'll select a grid of, and I want to specify which fields go in, so I've picked fields out of that list. We'll have it put the recipes page in the menu by default, so it'll go in main navigation. So we're done with the wizard, and we're back at the configuration page. So here's the preview. It's not very pretty right now because the only field that it puts in there by default is the title field. So we're going to want to add a little more to that. First off, we're going to change the grid settings. We only want to show 3 columns of items in the grid. So we've applied that. And now in the preview, we have 3 columns. That looks a little bit better already. There's not so much alignment issues. So now to add more fields. First, we've got the right field settings. That seems fine. In addition to content title, we will search now for an image field, which is pre-configured on this, by the way. This was following the user guide, which already has images. I've actually already created a bunch of recipes in there. That content's already there, which is why you can see stuff in the preview. So we're configuring the main image right now. I won't want to create a label. I don't want to exclude it from display, so we'll skip past those. That's confusing and not really relevant outside of a table, so we're going to skip that. The image should be displayed as an image instead of, say, a URL of the file. So we'll leave it at image. The image style, this is in Drupal what's called, an image style is some way to resize the image or to crop the image so that it's uniform. I've separately created an image style called crop to 320 by 240, which just ensures that whatever image that we have, it's always going to be that size and shape. So we'll select that image style. I want that image to be a link and to link to the piece of content. So we'll apply that. That shows up in the list of fields at the bottom of that list. And our preview now has the title along with images at a particular size. I want to add a few more things, or at least a summary of the recipe. So I will again add a field, search for the body field. I'll add that in. You can see also that the description is helpful insofar that it tells you what node types or what content types that this field appears in. So I know that this field does in fact appear in the recipe content type. So it gives me the configuration for the body content again. I don't want to create a label. I want it to be displayed. That doesn't matter again. The formatter. So I have a few different options for a text formatter. I can either display it by default, which will show me the full body, or I can use the summary value of that field instead. So I will go ahead and pick the summary or trimmed, change the trim to something a lot shorter. Now we have title, image, and some body text. I don't like the order in which those fields go, so I'm going to rearrange those fields. Move the main image up using those draggable handles to the left. The interface will tell me that I've moved fields because it'll put an asterisk next to it, so I can keep track of that visually before I apply it. I'll hit apply. In the list of fields now, main image is at the top, title is second, and body is third. And in my preview, that's what I see down here as well. Save it. Go back to the site. And now I have in my menu, automatically, because we set that during the wizard, we have a menu item called recipes. And when I click on it, I have my grid of recipe items. Yeah. So that's the end of that particular video, which I was glad to be able to fit in. That's pretty much all I have for an introduction. The next things that you need to look at, that middle column, the configuration options in there include things like being able to put header text or footer text on the view, what to do if there are no records that fit your filter, if you should show text for when there are no results. Also controls a pager that's on the screen if you want to have a pager. Those are configured a lot the same way that you configure fields or filters. So hopefully if you're comfortable with the way that you add and configure those items, it shouldn't be hard to take the same concepts and apply them to the user interface for those configurations as well. Those pop-up windows also have quite a bit of description and help text on them too. I fall into the trap of not reading help text that's freely given to me on the page. I hope that that other people decide to see text. When you get past what's in the middle column, then the next thing that you should do is open up that advanced drop-down, the thing that was in that right column. And there are two things that are really critical there to really jumpstart getting into really advanced views. One of those is contextual filters. You'll want to learn what those are and how they differ from conventional filters. A quick overview, contextual filters, the values of those are not static. They change according to the circumstances of your session on the site. So a contextual filter might give you a different value depending on the page that you're looking at. Or they might have a different value based on what user account you're logged in as. So contextual filters are more dynamic valued, as opposed to conventional filters, which we went over during this session, which usually have some set value that you've assigned to it. Additionally, you'll want to learn about relationships, which is a way of adding more options to filters and to fields to open up your full data model to views. In other sessions, you might learn about reference fields and ways that you can relate one type of content or one entity to another entity. Relationships are how you leverage those reference fields to pull in other information into your view. And you can get fairly complex, fairly nuanced displays by adding the right relationships. It gets pretty heady once you're into that point, and that's far beyond the scope of what we can talk about. Yeah, that's what I've got. I'd appreciate any ratings on this talk if you have the time to do it. It's the joined in page there. It's also on if you just go to joined in, the front page, you'll see MidCamp and all the sessions listed there. I encourage you to rate all the talks that you've seen. Any comment that you have, it doesn't matter what, any criticism would help me immensely. So please, by all means. We've got 7 minutes before the session's over. So if there's anything I can, yeah.
Going back to the sort of criteria and filter criteria, if you don't have a specific level of granularity that helps it differentiate, let's say you set it for granularity to be month,
Yep.
And you're sorting date content, and you have numerous elements that all fall into that same slot. If you don't specify anything further for granularity, what is Drupal's default behavior to decide how it organizes that content? If
Sure.
they're all equal?
Sure. So I'm going to broaden your question a little bit and say that the question is more, if you haven't configured enough sort criteria to break all the ties that are possible, what does Drupal do at that point? And the answer to that is, what will probably happen is that the first items that it comes up with in the database are the items that is the order that it stays in, and usually that'll be according to the node ID, just because of the way that SQL indexes work.
Okay.
But if you care enough about the order, then you should specify just enough sorting criteria to get you the order that you desire. If it turns out you don't care at all, then leave it out. Yeah.
Question. So this is kind of going off the extension of what she asked earlier. If it seems to me like a view is basically an extension of a content item, or a way that you can display a content item. Is that accurate, or like,
it's a way of collecting lots of content items together.
Okay,
yes.
so like, for example, if I had a RESTful service that I wanted to call for all of our employees, let's say, from an external database, would that flow into a content item and then we would use a view to display it?
I think that's
Or
possible. I guess.
define how to display it.
Yeah, that would be possible. I think it depends on. So you're asking if
Like, what object do you use as your base? In
Sure.
other words, like for something like that.
if so you have an external data source which you are using as sort of your base items.
Correct.
You will there are in order to get views to be able to consume that external data, you will either have to A, figure out how to migrate that data into something that Drupal understands, like an entity type
Okay.
or a content type, or B, you will have to write a plugin for views that allows it to understand how to consume your external data directly.
So, okay. So that's custom. That would be custom. You would have to first bring it in as something that is native to Drupal.
Right.
before you-
Views understands and speaks Drupal.
That makes sense. Okay.
And to get it to speak other things, you've got to teach it how to do it.
Okay. And the other question I have real quick, I know you hate multiple displays, but
Yeah.
would that be a good way to, like, let's say you were displaying your site on various platforms, like a mobile platform versus, in a mobile platform, you probably would want to display a lot less information,
Mhm.
per se. Like maybe in a computer or on a desktop, you would want to display like all the information about the user, whereas on a mobile, you might just want to display the user.
Sure.
Is that a way you could do like a valid way to do it?
So the question is, could you use multiple displays to have variants displayed at different responsive breakpoints?
Correct.
You could do it that way potentially. I think that what you run into more at that point is you'll have to render both displays because all of those displays have to be available on the page,
Oh.
and you've got to switch between them. I think the better way is to figure out how to make your one display responsive with the items that it has. There are plugins that allow you to do that. Like there's, I've used something in Drupal 7 called Foo Table, which has a plugin for views, and it's just a way of describing a table for which the columns can be collapsed down as you get down into responsive breakpoints. So, I mean, there are strategies for dealing with that plugin to views, but yeah, I'd try to make as much as possible your things
That
responsive.
makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
In your second example, the video for the recipes,
Mhm.
does it matter to Drupal how that content gets in there? Whether it's like just a basic page or an article or whatever? Is there a specific way you should put it in before the view will actually sort it?
We're asking if there's criteria that Views has implicitly about what type of content goes into a view.
Kind of like best practices. Like, how did you get that information in? Did you just
Yeah.
create another page and add it all in?
So I created a content type called recipes first of all. Then I created the fields on that recipe, and I was following the user guide pretty closely, the one that I talked about. And then I just went to the node add page and just filled in a bunch of recipes. I did it that way. So it doesn't matter to Drupal how they get created. It just matters that they exist and that the configuration that you have for the view is able to understand what you want that view to display. Yeah.
The rewrite rule.
Yeah.
And you have that change.
If you want to learn
Is
about
that a rich
responsibility
editor?
from
That you could,
213
encode style changes or anything else?
No
or is it
reason I'm
strictly text
suggesting
and then the tokens?
It's text and tokens, and there are filters on it. So we're talking about the rewrite results thing when you are configuring a field. That's not rich, but it does understand some HTML. It will strip out things that it considers unsafe. That includes styles or script tags.
So, for example, you couldn't use the rewrite rule to say if you're including the E2, if you're including like a person's name, you couldn't use the rewrite rule to have it actually go to a web address based on that value.
If you could construct a URL based on tokens somehow, then yes, you could do that. There's other places in the rewrite rule to construct a URL that you want this field to link to.
Okay.
So that is possible. One thing I do want to say about the rewrite results functionality in Views is that it feels really powerful. Like, it's a user interface to put exactly the content that you want to go in this particular thing. And you can like, without touching a bit of code, do a bunch of stuff with it. And in some ways, at some point, you'll realize that that's a trap. because you have created such a Rube Goldberg machine of different things that are rewriting into other things that it becomes unintelligible to other people that look at it and unmaintainable for anyone else. I kind of recommend that you use display modes of entity types as much as possible. And that gets more into, like, if you're able to do some theming and create a new display mode for recipes that displays the recipe exactly how you want it to. And you can tell your view, I want to display this not as fields, but as a piece of content using the display mode custom. And that's the way it's displayed. That is managed in code. It's understandable to other people who come after you. It's easier to maintain as long as you are okay dealing with it on a theme level instead. But the rewrite rules are helpful, especially starting out, and they're helpful for small things.
I think the use case I was thinking was like, let's say you wanted to just make a short list of people and their local websites. You want to just say, go to their website, and then that's the actual text that appears for the user, so then there's a URL.
Yeah.
That's not displayed.
Nope. That makes perfect sense as a use case. And you would also probably want to have added a field for website to that item as well. Yeah.
Are there any common modules that you use for stacking views, or things you find yourself using to make, to make views better? Or not really? Is it all pretty good out of the box?
So it's gotten better out of the box, certainly. Yeah, I mean, like flex slider. So like slideshows, because we get asked for slideshows all the time, and what can you say, really? So yeah, flex slider is pretty good for that. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd open that up if anybody else actually knows views or has used views and has
There's
things in
lots
mind.
of modules that integrate it with other modules.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like flag module will, for instance, expose a bunch of different relationships that are used with flags. Because it's such a foundational model in Drupal, a lot of other modules will make sure that its information, the stuff that it's doing, is known to views. But every day out of the box stuff that makes views easier, I'm not sure exactly. It's a fair question, though. It's 3:32, so I think we're done. Otherwise, you can find or talk to me online. I'm at Lasmana. Thanks.